This video is related to one of the lesson plan ingredients, which is connections. A connection section will usually include prior knowledge, prerequisites, keywords, a brain teaser. It's the warm-up of the lesson plan. As a teacher, when you want to design your lesson plan, you will start putting in front of you the curriculum map, the resources. You will start thinking about your students' cohort, their abilities, their interests. But from where do you start? How do you know if your students are ready? How can you grab their attention? How can you make them focused? How can you make them enthusiastic about their learning? Introducing the prerequisites in classroom requires careful planning and implementation to ensure that students are adequately prepared for new content. An effective lesson plan is a set of plans for building something. It constructs the learning. So the connection or the warm-up, it is the hook that will connect the previous lesson to the current lesson. It should be planned in a very wise manner to make sure that students see the progression of the concept from the previous lesson to the current lesson, for students to connect what they have learned before to what you are going to introduce now. So the startup of the lesson or the warm-up or the do now or the connection, it will either boost the morale of students and make them enthusiastic, or it will switch them off, make them feel that what they're going to learn is very hard, it is not within their reach, and they're incapable of mastering it. Prior knowledge help ensure that students have the necessary knowledge, skills, and understanding to engage with and benefit from the lesson. So by identifying and addressing the connections, teachers can ensure that students are adequately prepared to grasp the learning material. This promotes a smoother and more effective learning experience inside the classroom. Connections act as building blocks, establishing a logical progression of concepts and skills. So by explicitly identifying the prior knowledge and the prerequisites, teachers can ensure that the lesson follows a coherent sequence and that students have the fundamental required knowledge to understand and succeed in the new material. It helps teachers differentiate instruction based on students' varying levels of readiness. By identifying prerequisites, teachers can better tailor their approach to meet the diverse needs of students. They can provide additional support or extension activities for students who have gaps in their understanding or who are already proficient in the prerequisite concepts. Prior knowledge in a lesson plan helps teachers allocate the appropriate amount of time for reviewing or reinforcing prerequisite knowledge. It helps prevent rushing through fundamental concepts or spending excessive time on content that students have already mastered. This ensures efficient use of instructional time and supports a balanced pace of learning. Prerequisites provide an opportunity for teachers to assess students' readiness and understanding before delving into new material. By evaluating students' grasp of prerequisite concepts, teachers can identify any misconceptions or gaps in knowledge. This information informs instructional decisions, allowing teachers to provide targeted support or reteaching as needed. So, by explicitly addressing the prerequisites, teachers help reinforce and solidify students' understanding of fundamental concepts. This supports long term retention and helps students make connections between different ideas and topics. It enhances the overall depth and breadth of their knowledge and promotes a more comprehensive understanding of the subject matter. So the warm-up aims to grab the attention of the students, to provide the interest motivation factor, and it sets the tone for the lesson connected to the objectives. There are so many different examples about some of the warm-up activities that can be used inside the class as a way to focus students' attention and set the tone for the current lesson, such as a question, a story, a saying, an activity, a discussion starter, maybe a brainstorming topic, a quick write, a picture or video analysis, group discussion, maybe vocabulary revision, physical activities, so on and so forth. Keep in mind that you need to motivate your students. So creativity is very important when you design your warm-up for your lessons. Be creative. Make sure that your students are so excited every lesson to see what you are bringing to the class and how you will kick off your lesson. The coming question now is how to determine the prerequisites for the lesson and how to design the warm-up in an engaging and effective manner. Here is a step-by-step guide to determining the warm-up for a lesson. First of all, familiarize yourself with the curriculum or standards documents that outline the scope and sequence of the subject you're teaching. Second, clarify the specific learning objectives for the upcoming lesson and ask yourself this very important question: what knowledge or skills do I want my students to gain by the end of this lesson? Setting up your desired learning outcomes clearly will help you identify what students need to know and be able to do beforehand. Thirdly, before introducing the new content, assess students' prior knowledge by using pre-assessments, class discussions, or informal questioning. This helps you go what students already know and identify any knowledge gaps or misunderstandings. Fourthly, consider the content covered in previous lessons that directly relate to the upcoming lesson. Determine if there are specific concepts or skills that are fundamental and necessary for students to understand the new material. Fifthly, if you have a curriculum map, refer to it to identify the logical progression of concepts. This will help you determine the prerequisites for the current lesson based on the previously taught material, whether during that specific grade level or in previous grade levels. Sixthly, examine the textbooks, resources, or supplementary materials that are recommended for the subject and look for indications about what students should know before engaging with the content of the current lesson. Many books have teachers edition that are very resourceful and provides a lot of ideas about warm-up activities that will ignite the passion in students. Next, try to understand the developmental learning progressions within the subject area and recognize the sequential order of the concept. Then, reflect on your own teaching experience and knowledge of the subject to identify common prerequisites that students usually need before progressing to this new concept. Last but not least, if you find that students lack the necessary prerequisites, consider modifying your lesson plan or incorporating scaffolding strategies to provide additional support. Keep in mind that when you are teaching your students, you're not only covering the curriculum as prescribed in the curriculum maps provided by the school or the district. You are tailoring and accommodating to what your students' needs are telling you and the progression that they are showing throughout. So by considering these steps, you are effectively determining the prerequisites of the lesson, and you're designing the warm-up that will provide your students with the needed energy and the boost in order to successfully achieve the learning outcomes that are outlined in your lesson plan. So connections and prior knowledge will focus on linking the new information to the student's prior knowledge to activate the student's interest and curiosity and to infuse instruction with a sense of purpose. What about the keywords? Keywords are very important. We need to include the main vocabulary that learners must become familiar with to understand the core of the lesson. Remember, every teacher is a language teacher. If your students do not know the meaning of the main keywords related to your concept, then they will not be able to understand what the concept is about. One thing that we have to keep in mind, which is the usage of enduring understandings and essential questions in order to activate the learner's prior knowledge so that new learning can take place. When we talk about enduring understandings, we are referring to the important ideas that you want the students to retain upon completion of the unit of instruction. They refer to the big ideas that you want students to remember after they have forgotten the details. As for essential questions, we are referring to what students are investigating during the daily lesson. Essential questions emerge from the enduring understandings of the unit. Let's explore together some strategies to activate prior knowledge. Number 1, Quickwrites. Learners write for a few minutes about an assigned topic. Writing on topic requires that they think about the topic. KWL charts, which is widely used. Learners share with one another what they know about a topic, what they want to know about the topic, and then what they learned about the topic at the end of the lesson. Checklists. Learners are reminded of the knowledge, skills, and behaviors necessary to complete a task. Teachers created checklists, especially ones on which learners can add items, help learners keep relevant information in mind as they work. Sentence and paragraph frames. Learners use a linguistic scaffold so that their attention is focused on the content rather than the language required to communicate their understanding. Carousel brainstorming. Learners will rotate around the classroom in small groups, stopping at various stations for a designated amount of time. While at each station, learners will activate their prior knowledge of different topics or different aspects of a single topic through conversation with peers. Ideas shared will be posted at each station for all groups to read. Through movement and conversation, prior knowledge will be activated, providing scaffolding for new information to be learned in the preceding lesson activity. Think, pair, share. This is a commonly used strategy also. During this activity, learners will have individual time to think about a question related to the topic of study. They will then pair up with a partner to share their thoughts, and finally, the pairs will select one major idea to share with the entire class. 2-minute talks. During 2-minute talks, learners will share with a partner by brainstorming everything they already know about a topic, concept, or skill. In doing so, they're establishing a foundation of knowledge in preparation for learning new information about the topic, skill, or concept. This is my favorite. In the hot seat, in this activity, several learners will be asked to sit in the hot seat and answer questions related to the topic of study. Talking drawings. In this activity, learners will activate prior knowledge by creating a graphic representation of a topic before the lesson. After engaging in learning about the topic, learners will re-evaluate their prior knowledge by drawing a second depiction of their topic. They will then summarize what the different drawings say to them about what they learned. I'm ending my video with this statement, which is considered an important building block for a lesson plan. So the greater the structure of a lesson and the more precise the directions on what is to be accomplished, the higher the achievement rate.